TNA Victory Road 2012 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view just went off there a little while ago. As far as my thoughts on this show, this pay-per-view pretty much turned out the way I expected, and I think everyone expected going into it, which was this is just another throwaway pay-per-view from TNA. Now, this is one of those months that TNA at least had a reason to have, a throwaway pay-per-view or more or less just a meaningless show, just a B show that not too many people probably really even cared too much about. But the main factor was for them booking it that way, which was next month's is one of TNA's biggest shows of the year, TNA Lockdown. This was pretty much what this show was built for, to pretty much hype up and build for TNA Lockdown, which we already knew what the main event was going to be for TNA Lockdown, but a few other things transpired on this pay-per-view that we probably got at least two other matches that will most likely happen on that pay-per-view as well. Obviously, the main event's pretty much already been intact for a little while, which is Bobby Roode versus James Storm, which should be a very good match at the Lockdown. Should be an excellent match with them too, I expect. But as far as this pay-per-view, I would say you had at least two fairly good matches. You had a really good tag match with Christopher Daniels and Kazarian teaming up to take on AJ Styles and Mr. Anderson. And then the other match that was fairly good was Kurt Angle versus Jeff Hardy. I was expecting more from it, but understand with the way they ended this match with Kurt Angle winning kind of like in a screwjob fashion, they're obviously going to be continuing this feud, so probably see an excellent match with them two next month inside of a cage at Lockdown, which should be an excellent match with Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy within inside a steel cage, so they'll definitely make up for it next month. This is pretty much just kind of just give you a little taste of what they can do. Obviously, you've seen better matches in TNA with them, but both of those matches were good. Other than that, it was more or less another very weak undercard from TNA. And the main event, I think most people could really care less with it. Bobby Roode and Sting for the title. I mean, Sting looked good in the match. I can't say he didn't try to perform, and he actually looked for his age. He was able to still do all his stuff in there, and it wasn't a terrible match. It's not a match that I think many people were really interested in going into it, and it was decent for what it was, but not too much. So, like I said, about two good matches on this pay-per-view, just more or less just a throwaway show from TNA. But the first matchup was before the first match started. Bully Ray came out there, basically cut a promo saying he's going to hold this pay-per-view hostage. Goes on with this promo for a little bit. Then comes out James Storm. Bully Ray said he wants this match to be a number one contenders match. James Storm says it will be. So they started off. Not really much of a match. James Storm wins it really quick. Didn't last any time really. They brawled for a little bit at the beginning. James Storm was down. Then Bully Ray went to the corner, grabbed the beer from the corner, took a sip of it, then turned around and got hit with a super kick from James Storm, and that was the match. It was very short, just a few minutes, if that. So I'm not really going to give that match a rating because it was way too short. Then the next match, which was the match I would say that was actually their first real match to start that, since they just kind of did that little thing at the beginning with Bully Ray and James Storm. Next matchup was Zema Ion versus Austin Aries for the X Division title. This was a fairly good match, good back and forth action. They did a number of good things in here. They did one spot where Zema Ion, did his backflip outside the ring, kind of, playing off, the whole Jesse Sorensen thing. Is he going to injure someone else, and basically that. Then they get in the ring, some good back and forth action, and Austin Aries wins this match. Towards the end of the match, you saw Zema Ion. He went for the X Division title belt. The referee stopped him. Then while the referee was trying to put that up, he got a bottle of hairspray out of his tights, sprayed Austin Aries in the eyes with it. Looks like that's going to be the end. Goes for a pin. Aries kicks out. And then Aries is pretty much blinded, but he's kind of going by what the crowd's saying, where is Zema Ion? And plays off that, then hits the brain buster to Zema Ion. Then while he's got that in, still's got him locked in and puts the front chancery in. And Austin Aries wins his match after Zema Ion taps out and retains the title. And obviously at this point, Austin Aries is the longest reigning X Division champion, and he still retained the title here. fairly good match with these two, I would say. Nothing great, but a decent match, about 2.5 stars. Then the next matchup was Matt Morgan and Crimson versus Samoa Joe and Magnus for the TNA Tag Team titles. More or less, this match was obviously Samoa Joe and Samoa Joe and Magnus obviously working more as a tag team, going back and forth with tags, trying to work over the Crimson most of the match. And Crimson was pretty much in this match most of the time. Crimson was pretty much wanting to do this all by himself. He was refusing to go out and tag Matt Morgan. Then Matt Morgan finally tagged him. And this played obviously towards the end of the match where Crimson and Matt Morgan basically weren't getting along at all. And then at the end of the match, Crimson pretty much is walking out. He gets back in the ring, spears Matt Morgan, and then Samoa Joe, and then Samoa Joe and Magnus do their combo tag team move, the snap near and the elbow drop, and they obviously retain the titles. So looks like probably with this whole Matt Morgan and Crimson thing that was built up here, we'll probably be seeing them in a match at Lockdown, most likely. As far as the tag match, it was what it was. I mean, you've seen these two teams take on each other before. It's nothing god-awful and terrible, but it's just, it's just there. It's nothing really too special. I would say about 2 and 1/4 star match. Then the next matchup was Robbie E's open challenge. Robbie E comes out there, saying that no one, almost everyone in the back's already in a match, so no one's going to take him on. Then they go on a promo, and him and Robbie E, talk back and forth, and then comes out of the crowd. D-Von wants to accept the open challenge. Then D-Von and Robbie E obviously have their match. It was what you would expect with these two. Nothing too special, nothing terrible, I would say. D-Von wins this match after hitting the Spine Buster to become the new TV champion. Nothing too much there. The crowd loves D-Von. He's so over. So maybe with that they can do something with this TV title. But we'll probably just see D-Von and Robbie E take on each other once again. But the crowd's behind D-Von, so I understand why giving him a title, and it is the TV title. Is pretty much a meaningless title anyway. As far as the match, I wouldn't really say much about 1 and 3/4 stars. Then the next matchup was the Knockouts title match. This was Madison, Rayne, and Gail Kim. Just pretty much your typical Divas match. Nothing too special. It actually went on fairly way too long, I would say. Just kept on dragging. If this was Gail Kim versus someone I like a lot, like I could see Mickie James and Gail Kim, or Mickie James Mickie James and Tara, or Gail Kim and Mickie James, and some of them probably could do a good women's match, that actually, is a pretty lengthy match for a women's match, but it just didn't work with Madison Rayne here. Gail Kim tried her best, I'm a huge fan of Gail Kim, but Madison Rayne's just not that talented inside the ring. Just felt like your typical, Divas or Knockouts match, nothing too special. Gail Kim does retain after hitting her finisher. In this match, so she does retain the Knockouts title, about 1.5 stars, nothing too special. Then the next matchup, this is kind of when the pay-per-view, at least, nothing on this pay-per-view was great or anything, but I would say at least the next match and the match after at least kind of picked the pay-per-view up a little. It helped it a little in some ways to not be remembered as one of the worst shows, I would say, but didn't really do too much. But I would say the next match was fairly good. This was Christopher Daniels and Kazarian teaming up to take on AJ Styles and Mr. Anderson. You saw some really good stuff in here. Obviously, whenever you got Christopher Daniels and AJ, on opposite sides taking on each other, you obviously going to see great stuff with them. Kazarian did some good stuff in here. Mr. Anderson as well. The crowd loves Mr. Anderson, so obviously he's very over, and he did some good stuff with Christopher Daniels. Obviously, them brawling, and just a fairly good tag match. I really enjoyed this. The end of this match came when AJ Styles looked like he was going to go for a springboard on Kazarian. Kazarian called him. He was about to hit his Fade to Black finisher. AJ reversed it, hit the Styles Clash, and pinned Kazarian. So AJ Styles and Mr. Anderson win this tag match in a fairly good tag match. I would say about 3 1/4 stars. Then the next match was probably the match I would say that was match of the night, even though some of these matches on this pay-per-view are so weak that's not really saying too much. But I would say the next match was easily match of the night. This was Kurt Angle versus Jeff Hardy. What you would expect with these two. It wasn't the excellent, incredible match that you would expect from them to have. But it was good for what it was. I did enjoy. You saw some good back and forth action, and obviously this match, since they kind of held back a little bit, they're obviously saving it for TNA Lockdown next month, which we'll see probably them two in a cage. Especially the way this match ended. The way the match ends, Kurt Angle wins via a roll up by he's holding the middle rope. So look, I thought at first, they're just going to restart the match, but they didn't do that. So obviously, this feud with Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy is going to continue, which I don't think anyone really will have a problem with it because Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy can always have good matches with them. And this match right here, even though they were kind of holding it back, it was still, a good match. Just not the incredible match I think some people might have expected here. But considering we're going to be seeing them at Lockdown next month, most likely inside of a cage, Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy really going to make it up there. It should be an excellent match inside of the cage at Lockdown, so we really can't wait to see that. As far as this match, it's still good. I would give it about 3 1/4 stars, maybe even 3.5 stars. It was a good match, even with the screw job ending. Then the next matchup was obviously the main event of the evening. This was Bobby Roode versus Sting, and a no holds barred match. And the match actually wasn't too bad. It was a little better than I was expecting. I mean, Sting as a main eventer, I think Sting, even though he can somewhat still go, I think most fans, even though I love Sting, back in his prime, I was a huge fan, during the the NWA and WCW era and all that. But Sting kind of just needs to hang it up. I mean, that's just what it needs to be. He doesn't need to be main eventing pay-per-views anymore, at least in my opinion. I mean, have Roode and someone else do main event, allow some, homegrown talent to main event instead of having Sting main event, even though this did have some backstory to it and had reasoning to take place. It wasn't just, well, we're going to put Sting in the main event for the hell of it. At least had reasoning behind it, but still, I think most people will say, Sting kind of main event at this time is getting a little too old in some cases. Well, at least at this point, I guess we can say that at least he isn't, going around and holding the world title. So that's the one thing that has improved, at least, back a year or two ago, that he was pretty much doing that. And especially, those couple years where he was always had the title at Bound for Glory and always, pretty much walked out with the title at Bound for Glory. So at least that's kind of stopped, but they still obviously, with his name recognition, they want to have him main event. So as far as this match, Sting, still kind of had it in the ring. You saw him, do the Stinger Splash outside on the guardrail to Roode. They brawled outside a little bit inside the ring, and then the end of the match came when Bobby Roode, he set up a chair and looks like he was about to do something to Sting. Sting went to Robert Roode. Got him in the death drop, hit him with it, which he did hit him with it, but behind him, unknowingly, his back of his head hit the steel chair that Bobby Roode put up, so Sting pretty much is knocked out. Then Roode pins him, so that's the end of that. Then after the match, they do a very long segment where pretty much, Bobby Roode, he attacks the ref, he goes after Sting. Dixie Carter comes in the ring. This is just dragged out forever. And you're expecting, James Storm to come out there and do something, maybe save Dixie Carter and stop him from doing what he's doing with Sting, but that didn't happen. It just pretty much ended with, total chaos in there with him, threatening Dixie Carter, going after Sting and all that. And it was just a very drawn out segment. It just felt like the main event was something that, if it was on Impact, it could have worked better, but on pay-per-view, that's not something I would say is pay-per-view worthy. It felt like, especially the post-match stuff, this was something I would expect to see on TNA Impact, not a pay-per-view. So, yeah, that's it for my TNA pay-per-view review. As far as the main event, I would give it about 2.5 stars. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it's just they could have had something better as the main event, even though, like I said, TNA was booking this as, you know, a B show, pretty much a throwaway show for their big pay-per-view TNA Lockdown, but they could have done better. As far as the overall show, I would give it about a 5.5. It just wasn't anything too special. I would say, you know, people, if you want to check out the tag match with Kazarian and Daniels teaming up, taking on Styles and Anderson, that was fairly good. And even, I would say, even though we're going to see a better match probably next month, I would say, you know, check out Angle's match with Jeff Hardy as well. Just just don't expect it to be the excellent match like some of their other matches in the past has been, but it was fairly good. So those two matches were at least somewhat worth checking this pay-per-view out for, but I would definitely kind of say most people just stay clear from this pay-per-view. It wasn't much of anything. Like I said, overall, I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10, and yeah, that's it for my TNA Victory Road 2012 pay-per-view review. All right, peace.